I'm Margaret Whitfield, and 3 weeks ago, my life collapsed in a single phone call. It was just after 3 in the morning when my cell phone lit up on the nightstand. My son Daniel's name glowed on the screen. I answered half asleep, but his voice came through strangled, broken. "Mom, my chest. I can't." Then the line went dead. By the time I rushed to the hospital, my son was already gone, 45 years old, strong and steady, and just like that, a massive heart attack stole him away. The hallway smelled like antiseptic, but all I could taste was grief. I remember clutching the strap of my purse until my hand went numb, staring at the doctor's lips moving while I barely understood a word. Standing next to me was Daniel's wife, Vanessa. Her face was pale, yes, but there was something beneath her expression, a flicker of relief that made my stomach twist. I told myself I was imagining it. People grieve in strange ways. I thought, at the funeral, I tried to stay strong. I stood in the front row, reading scripture with trembling hands, while Vanessa controlled every detail of the service. The flowers were expensive, the music carefully chosen, but there was one thing missing. Not a single photograph of me and Daniel from the past 20 years. They had been erased, replaced with curated snapshots of their marriage. When I realized it, my throat closed, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't about me. It was the day after we buried my son when Vanessa cornered me in the kitchen. Her black dress still hung like mourning on her shoulders, but her words were colder than any tomb. "This is my house now. Margaret, I need space. You'll have to move out tomorrow." Tomorrow. That word hit harder than any slap. I had sold my own home years earlier, handed over my savings so Daniel and Vanessa could make this house their own. Now I was being pushed to the curb like I was nothing more than baggage. I packed my suitcases with shaking hands, but something inside me stirred. I had no idea then that my son had left behind more than memories. He had left me a truth that would turn Vanessa's smug cruelty into her undoing. The morning after Daniel's funeral, the house still smelled of lilies and extinguished candles. I moved slowly through the living room, collecting the empty glasses left behind by neighbors who had offered their condolences. My chest ached with the kind of fatigue only grief can bring. I was rinsing cups in the sink when I felt a presence behind me. Vanessa stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. She no longer wore the mask of a grieving widow. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. "Margaret, we need to talk," she said. I dried my hands on a dish towel, bracing myself. "This house," she began, her tone crisp, "is mine now. Daniel's gone, and I need to move forward. I can't do that with you living here. You'll have to pack your things." Her words cut through me like ice. For a moment, I couldn't even answer. I glanced toward the staircase, toward the bedroom where I had slept for the past 2 years. I had given up my own home, contributed $40,000 from the sale to help them buy this place. I had believed it was an investment in family, a safe corner for my final years. "Vanessa," I whispered, "I sold everything to help you and Daniel. I thought this house was meant for all of us." Her expression didn't soften. "That was your choice. Tomorrow evening should give you enough time to leave." Tomorrow? One word, spoken so casually, as if 68 years of my life could be boxed up overnight. My hands trembled against the counter, but I forced myself to stand straight. As I climbed the stairs to my room, I realized something bitter. Grief had turned into exile, and my son's absence had left me defenseless. I closed the bedroom door behind me and leaned against it, listening to the muffled hum of the refrigerator downstairs. The house felt unfamiliar, as if Daniel's warmth had vanished with him. I pulled an old suitcase from the closet and laid it open on the bed. My hands shook as I folded sweaters. The same sweaters I used to wear while cooking dinner for the three of us. Each item felt heavier than it should, carrying memories no one else wanted. Halfway through packing, I paused at a framed photograph of Daniel as a boy, standing in our old backyard with a baseball glove too big for his hand. I pressed the glass to my chest, closing my eyes. The thought of leaving this house meant abandoning more than walls. It meant surrendering pieces of him that lingered in every corner. A knock startled me. The door creaked open, and Vanessa stepped in without waiting. She scanned the half-filled suitcase, her lips pressed tight. "I just wanted to check on your progress," she said flatly. Progress, as if I were some task to be completed. "I'll be ready by tomorrow," I replied, forcing calm into my voice. She nodded once, then added, "Daniel always felt sorry for you, but I don't. This arrangement was never meant to last." The cruelty of her honesty stung worse than any lie. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood, unwilling to give her the satisfaction of tears. When she left, I zipped the suitcase closed and looked around one last time. The walls were bare, stripped of the few photographs I had dared to hang. The room no longer looked like mine. It never had. Tomorrow evening, I would drive away with my life crammed into 4 suitcases and no place to go. 3 days later, I sat in the parking lot of a red brick building in downtown Hartford, my palms damp against the steering wheel. The sign on the door read, "Reynolds and Hale." Attorneys at law. Daniel's lawyer had called, insisting my presence was required for the reading of the will. I almost hadn't come. What could possibly be left for me? But something in his voice told me it mattered. I watched as Vanessa stepped out of a sleek silver SUV. She wore a black dress that clung to her like armor, her hair perfectly arranged. At her side was her brother Mark, tall and polished in an expensive suit. They moved quickly toward the entrance, Vanessa's heels clicking against the pavement with the certainty of someone who believed she had already won. Inside, the receptionist greeted me kindly, though Vanessa's face tightened the moment she saw me. "What is she doing here?" she demanded. "She's listed as a beneficiary. Mrs. Whitfield?" The receptionist replied smoothly. Vanessa scoffed, lowering her voice, but not enough to hide the bite. "Beneficiary of what? Pity?" I swallowed hard and sat down, refusing to rise to her bait. At exactly 2:00, Mr. Reynolds appeared, a silver-haired man with gentle eyes and a measured voice. He ushered us into a paneled office where the blinds filtered the afternoon light. Vanessa perched on the edge of her chair, hands folded in eager anticipation. Mark pulled out a notepad, already prepared to tally her winnings. The lawyer began reading. As expected, the house, the car, and Daniel's retirement accounts all passed to Vanessa, her chin lifted higher with each line. Then Reynolds cleared his throat, his tone shifting ever so slightly. "There is, however, one additional provision." I held my breath. Vanessa stopped smiling. The following morning, I walked into First National Bank clutching a sealed envelope that Mr. Reynolds had handed me after the will reading. My name was typed neatly across the front, along with a small brass key taped to the corner. The receptionist directed me to a private office, where the branch manager, Mrs. Coleman, greeted me with a firm handshake and a voice softened by sympathy. "Your son set this up 5 years ago," she explained, as she led me through a series of locked doors. "He visited the vault regularly. I think you'll find what he left for you quite meaningful." We stopped before a heavy steel drawer labeled 214B, Mrs. Coleman inserted her master key while I slid Daniel's into place. The mechanism clicked, and together we pulled the box free. My hands trembled as I carried it to a quiet room with no windows, just a polished table and 2 chairs. When I lifted the lid, the first thing I saw was an envelope marked in Daniel's handwriting. Mom. My vision blurred before I even opened it. If you're reading this, the letter began, then I'm gone, and Vanessa has probably shown you who she really is. I'm sorry, but I'm not surprised. I've known for years what she's capable of. You gave us $40,000 for the down payment on our house. I invested it for you, adding more whenever I could. It's no longer 40, it's close to 190,000, all in your name. Enough so you'll never depend on her goodwill. Beneath the letter were folders of documents, bank statements, investment records, even printed text messages and emails. Evidence, proof that Vanessa had mocked me, manipulated Daniel, and siphoned money for herself. Daniel hadn't just left me money, he had left me the truth. 2 days after opening the box, my phone rang while I sat in the motel's stiff armchair. Vanessa's voice came through overly sweet, almost sing-song. Margaret, why don't you come by for lunch tomorrow? I thought we could talk. About family, about Daniel. For a moment, I nearly laughed. Family? She had thrown me out of her house before the lilies at the graveside had wilted. Still, something in her tone told me she was fishing for answers. I accepted, masking my suspicion with a polite, "Of course, I'd like that." The next afternoon, I pulled into the driveway of the house that used to feel like home. The flower beds were freshly trimmed, as if she had already begun staging her new life. Vanessa opened the door in a flowing cream dress, her smile wide enough to show every tooth. "I made your favorite, chicken salad. Come in. Come in." The dining room table gleamed under the chandelier. She had set out fine china, folded napkins, even a vase of roses at the center. The performance was flawless, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. We sat, and she filled my glass with iced tea before taking her seat across from me. Her hands lingered on the stem of her glass, eyes darting as if rehearsing the lines of a play. "I know things have been tense," she began, lowering her lashes. "But Daniel would want us to look after each other. Families should stick together. Don't you agree?" I chewed slowly, letting the silence stretch. She mistook my quiet for agreement, leaning forward eagerly. "So, about that safety deposit box," she continued, her voice tightening around the words. "I was thinking maybe we could share whatever Daniel left you." I set down my fork. Finally. The real conversation had begun. I placed my fork neatly on the edge of the china plate and folded my hands, studying Vanessa across the table. Her smile faltered when I didn't immediately respond. You think Daniel would want us to share?" I asked softly. "Of course," she said quickly. "He wouldn't want secrets between us. Whatever's in that box, it belongs to both of us. Really, marriage makes everything joint." Her eagerness was almost desperate. I let the silence linger, then leaned back in my chair. "That's interesting. I seem to remember you telling me I didn't contribute anything to this household, that Daniel only felt sorry for me." The color drained slightly from her face. She set her glass down with a clink. I was upset. I didn't mean it." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope, sliding it across the table. She hesitated before unsealing it. Inside was a photograph of Daniel on his college graduation day, framed in sunlight, his smile wide and proud. Her expression softened for a moment. "This is lovely," she whispered. "Yes," I replied, my voice steady. "He wanted me to have memories that mattered. Not everyone values them." Her eyes snapped up, suspicion sparking. What are you saying? Only that Daniel was more perceptive than you ever gave him credit for. He noticed things. He remembered words. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. Words? I tapped my purse lightly. Text messages, emails, notes he kept. He was thorough. Vanessa, very thorough. Her hand froze, knuckles whitening around the fork. I watched the practiced sweetness dissolve from her face, leaving the woman who had once told me to pack my life into 4 suitcases. For the first time since Daniel's death, she looked afraid. Vanessa tried to recover, stabbing a piece of lettuce with her fork, but her hand shook too visibly. Daniel was private about finances, she said, forcing a laugh. I'm sure you misunderstood whatever you saw. I slipped my phone from my purse, unlocking the screen with deliberate calm. Private, perhaps, but also meticulous. I turned the phone toward her, showing a screenshot of a text conversation. Her own words glared back at her in black and white. Can't wait until that old woman finally leaves. We'll turn her room into my home gym. Her face blanched. She lunged across the table, but I pulled the phone back before she could touch it. There are dozens of these, I continued, my tone even. Every cruel comment, every scheme. Daniel saved them all. That's illegal, she snapped, her voice rising. He had no right to. He had every right, I cut in firmly. It was his phone, his house, and you were speaking about his mother. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. Her mask had slipped completely, the saccharine widow act dissolving into raw panic. What do you want from me? She asked finally, her voice trembling. Money? An apology? Just tell me. I studied her, seeing not the polished woman in designer clothes, but the hollow ambition underneath. I don't want your money, Vanessa. I never did. What I want is the truth laid bare, and you've already handed me that. She looked down at her plate, her shoulders curling inward as though the weight of exposure pressed on her spine. For the first time, she understood that Daniel's quiet diligence had left her no escape, and I intended to let that knowledge sink in until it broke her. I reached into my bag again, this time drawing out a slim folder. Vanessa's eyes followed it like a predator tracking prey. I laid it on the table, resting my hand on the cover. You told me I never contributed to this house, I said quietly, but Daniel knew better. He remembered the $40,000 I gave him when you bought it. She blinked, confusion flashing into realization. That was a gift, she hissed. No, I corrected. That was my life savings. Daniel treated it as a loan, and he invested it for me, carefully, for 5 years. 5. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor as she pushed back. You're lying. I opened the folder and slid a single page toward her. It was a bank statement, the balance written in crisp black ink. $189,740.65. Vanessa's hand trembled as she read the numbers. This can't be real. It's real, I said. Daniel made sure of it. He wanted me secure, so I'd never have to rely on your charity. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She sank slowly back into her chair, color draining from her face. That's almost as much as the insurance policy, she muttered finally, her voice cracking. I closed the folder with deliberate calm. You inherited the house, the retirement accounts, the insurance. You got more than enough. What Daniel left me is mine, and I don't owe you an explanation or a cent. Her eyes darted toward the envelope in my bag, desperate and calculating all at once. But beneath that greed I saw fear, the dawning realization that the power she thought she held over me was gone. "I'm not your burden anymore, Vanessa," I said softly. "I never was." Vanessa gripped the edge of the table as if it could anchor her to a reality slipping away. Her breath came fast, uneven. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If people find out about those messages, about the spending, I'll lose everything. My reputation, my life. I can't." I lifted my glass and took a slow sip, letting the silence answer her panic. She pushed her plate aside, leaning forward with wild eyes. "Please, Margaret, I was grieving. I wasn't thinking clearly. I said terrible things I didn't mean. We can fix this. Just, let's forget all of it. We're family." The word rang hollow, like a bell cracked down the middle. I set my glass down and met her gaze. Family doesn't throw you out the day after a funeral. Family doesn't erase 20 years of photographs. You made your choice. Tears spilled down her cheeks, streaking her carefully painted makeup. Her shoulders shook as she clutched at the napkin in her lap. "I can't go back to being nobody," she sobbed. "Daniel gave me a life. Without it, I'm nothing." I felt a pang, not sympathy exactly, but a recognition of how fragile her armor had always been. All the luxury, the posture, the sharp edges. It had been desperation in disguise. "You're not losing everything," I told her, my tone firm. "You still have this house. You still have the insurance, the accounts. You're comfortable if you choose to be. What you've lost is the power to make me feel small." She buried her face in her hands, collapsing into quiet, guttural sobs. For the first time since Daniel's death, the silence between us didn't feel like mine to carry. It was hers, and I knew then she was already defeated. I rose from the table, the weight of the folder tucked safely back into my bag. Vanessa remained slumped in her chair, shoulders shaking, her tears dripping onto the fine china she had so proudly displayed. For once, she had no more barbs, no more threats, only silence and defeat. I walked through the dining room, past the framed photographs she had curated so carefully, each one a performance of the life she wanted the world to see. None of them showed the truth. None of them showed Daniel's quiet strength, or the way he had worked tirelessly to protect me even when I didn't realize it. At the front door, I paused and looked back. Vanessa hadn't moved. Her once perfect posture was gone, replaced by a hollow figure folded in on itself. For a brief moment, I felt almost sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the way she had stood in that same kitchen weeks earlier, telling me I had 24 hours to leave my own son's home. Pity dissolved into clarity. Stepping outside, the sun hit my face with the warmth I hadn't felt in months. I breathed in deeply, the air crisp and alive, carrying none of the staleness of grief. My car sat at the curb, its trunk still full of suitcases. They no longer looked like symbols of exile. They looked like freedom. That evening, back at the motel, I sat at the small desk and began searching rental listings. A modest apartment near the coast caught my eye, nothing extravagant, just a place that would be mine. Paid for with the money Daniel had guarded for me. Even from beyond the grave, my son had kept his promise, and that, more than anything Vanessa could ever take, was the gift that would carry me forward. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.